Hey guys, welcome to the series of VMware vSphere 8. So, we are going to continue with our networking session. It has been a long break, guys. I have not been putting the videos due to some unavoidable reasons, some unavoidable situations, but hereafter we will be continuing our journey and we will try to finish this series as soon as possible. So, just to recall, in our previous session, we have created the new data center with the name Networking Data Center. And we have added one host esx3a. Now we are going to move further. Coming to our VMware hands-on lab, in our created data center, that is networking data center, there is one esxi host with the name esx3a. So what you have to do is now moving on with our lab. Just let me add a note over here. In this lab, we will learn how to create port groups and how to create kernels. So guys, then after that, before we conclude, we are going to have a short discussion on different type of traffics and their purposes. So again, coming to our point over here in ESXi3A, click on configure button. Then go to virtual switches. Over here, you will see a pre-configured standard switch, the name vSwitch 0. So under vSwitch 0, you will see a VM kernel with the name management network. And this management network VM kernel has IP address configured 192.168.110.53, which is nothing but the management IP of your ESXi3A host. You can access ESX3A using this IP address. So guys, any IP address to ESXi host does not go to vMNIC but to a VM kernel. This we have understood in detail in our previous session. So I'm not going to repeat again the same thing. If you edit the setting over here in a VM kernel, over here guys, not over here, the second three dots, over here if you click on edit setting, you will see by default management traffic is allowed. Just close this. Just I want to show you that by default the management traffic is allowed and you can see it over here practically. We will scroll down a little, you will see a storage network. And over here, storage network is also a VM kernel and the IP address which is configured is 10.10.20.53. In our previous session, if you remember, we note down some IP addresses in Notepad. Let me open that. You will see that storage IP which we have noted down is 10.10.20.60, which is in the same network over here, which is 10.10.20.53. So the reason behind this to configure a VM kernel with the name storage network, the name can be anything, but the IP address is from the same network where your storage is, so that the storage network can be communicated. Your ESXi host can communicate to your storage IP, which is 10.10.20.60. So you can see there in a default port group available with the name VM network. Let me scroll down. This one, the default port group with the name VM network. Over here, there is no IP address. We have learned this, how to identify a VM kernel or a port group. Port group is the place where your virtual machines will be seen if you have assigned that particular port group to the virtual machine. And VM kernel can be identified if there is IP address configured. So this is a difference we have understood in our previous session. So in short, I can say that a VM kernel contains IP addresses and VM port group contains virtual machines. So guys, VM kernel can be used for vMotion, fault tolerance, provisioning traffic after enabling. Let me show you these terms. If you will go to any of the VM kernel, or you can go to a management network. Just over here, if you click on edit setting, You will see the enabled services like vMotion, provisioning, FT, management, traffic, and so on. Similarly, on the other VM kernel, which is storage network, if you go over here, even over here, you will find that options. So what are these kinds of traffic? Now let's say you have to move virtual machine, that is live migration from one ESXi host to another ESXi host. For example, if you want to move a machine in Linux which may be running on ESXi 1 or maybe running on ESXi 2, you have to move this machine to ESXi 3A host. That is from one ESXi host to another ESXi host. You will be performing vMotion. So for doing this, you need to enable a vMotion traffic on source as well as destination by going to vMkernel. Similarly, let's say you have to do live replication of VMs from one ESXi host to another ESXi host. You need to perform fault tolerance. This terminologies we have understood in our initial session. So for doing this, you need to enable FT traffic on the source as well as destination. What you will do is you will be going to your host under configure in virtual switches on a particular VM kernel. You will just click on edit settings and you can just simply enable and click OK. For fault tolerance, you will check this box. For vMotion, you will check this box, and so on, and you will click OK. So guys, now let's perform a small practical over here where we will be learning how to create VM port groups and how to create VM kernels. Now again, going to your ESXi 3 host, we are going to perform all this practical on our networking data center and ESX3A host. So ESXi 3A under configure, go on virtual switches and simply click on add networking. Over here, now first we will create a VM port group. So check this box, virtual machine port group for a standard switch. Click next. For now, we will be creating this VM port group on the existing standard switch. So just keep this check and check this vSwitch 0. What is vSwitch 0? Let me close this and come again. See, already there is a configured switch, standard switch with the name vSwitch. So we are going to create the VM port group and VM kernel on the same switch for now. But in our coming session, we will learn how to create a virtual switch, and we will also create the VM port groups, VM kernels on the new created virtual switch. But for now, we are going to create VM port group and VM kernel on the same existing switch. Okay, so in the same thing, click on add networking, select virtual machine port group, click next. Now we will say select an existing standard switch and this existing switch vSwitch 0, click next. Over here, the network label, we will give the name of the network label, let's say Windows. VLAN ID, this is again a different concept which we are going to understand in our coming session of networking. For now, keep the rest things as default, click next and finish. So guys, over here you will see now, if you scroll down, the Windows VM port group which we have created just now is seen over here. Since this Windows port group is not assigned to any of the host, any of the virtual machine, so it is saying that zero virtual machines, because this particular port group is not assigned to any virtual machine. Okay, now the second step, I cannot say second step, the second concept what we are going to configure over here is we are going to learn how to create a VM kernel. So guys, again, the same virtual switch over here, click on add networking, and this time instead of selecting virtual machine port group, we will be choosing VM kernel network adapter. Click on next button. For now, we are going with the existing standard switch. Choose this and choose vSwitch 0. Click next. Network label. By default, we have learned VM kernel. So we will change the name over here, and let's say we will give the name as management VM kernel. For example, it can be anything. scroll down a little. For now, just select management traffic. Rest all things keep default. One more thing, VLAN ID and everything we are going to learn at that time. I will show you all this thing. For now, what you have to do, give the network label name and just check this box for the management traffic. Click next. Over here, say use static IP before setting and IP address. If you remember, we have ESXi 3A host IP. I have noted down over here, which is 192.168.110.53. This we have noted down in our previous session, right? So we will be using IP address from the same network. So let's say over here we will give 192.168.110.63 with the subnet mask 55.255.255.0 and click next. Now click on finish button, and over here you will be able to see the newly created VM kernel, that is management VM kernel, and the IP address which we have recently configured. So guys, this we have configured just now. This was the existing one, the ESXi3A host IP. But now if we will try to log in using this new created management IP, because we have enabled the management uh, port over here, we will be able to access ESXi3. Now just open a new tab and using the new IP address, which is 110.63, if you try to browse, you will be able to access your ESXi3 host. So you know that the default username and password, which is root, is the username, VM capital WARE 1 exclamation and enter. So you can see that using the new IP address which you have configured on the newly created VM kernel, you are able to access the ESXi3A host. So that's all guys for this tutorial. Just to recall what we did in this tutorial, we have understood different type of traffics which you can enable on your VM kernel. It can be a vMotion traffic for the live migration of the machine from one ESXi host to another ESXi host. We have understood how you will be doing a live application, that is fault tolerance. You can enable FT feature on the VM kernel. You can also enable different types of traffic as per your requirement, that is on VM kernel. We have recalled how you will identify the port group and VM kernel. Port group is the one where you have the virtual machines. You can assign the port groups of virtual machines. VM kernel is something which is used for different type of traffics. It can be management, FT, live migration, that is vMotion, and so on. Concluding, we have learned how to create a VM port group and how to create a VM kernel. This we have done in our existing virtual switch, but in the coming time we will be we will be learning how to create the new virtual switch, and we will be again creating these port groups and VM kernels on the new created switches. Guys, additionally, I would like to recall that whatever we are learning over here is a standard switch in networking. Distributed switch is again a vast concept which we are going to learn, not now, they are concluding lectures. That's all in the session. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please subscribe it now and do share with your friends. Thanks for watching. See you in the next session.